Welcome to this edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery, brought to you by spiritualteachers.org. I'm your host, Sean Nevins. Hello and welcome to this edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery. So this month I'm going to do a reading, which is a version of a session that I did at the November 2020 TAT meeting. So if you were there for that meeting, you'll have heard this before, but I did a slightly truncated version of this at the meeting. So this is the full thing. And what it is it's a take on a lecture that Richard Rose used to give called the Lecture of Questions. And that's actually the first time I saw him speak. What he did was a lecture of questions. And yeah, I don't know what to say about that except that it changed my life. Not necessarily the questions that he asked, but just the mood that was in the room. And this person who was presenting questions that I had never considered before, or I had considered impossible to answer. And in one sense, these questions, each one of them could be looked at as a koan, or a natural koan, which is a phrase that I think I came across in a book by Philip Kapleau many years ago. And I've taken natural koan to mean a question that is personal to you. It's not a koan in the traditional sense of something like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? But a natural koan can be a question of your own, something that you come up with, and it has meaning and power and force, really, to it, to provoke thought and to provoke silence as well. And really, it's in that silence, I think, the true answers arise. So for this edition, what I ask is that you really pay attention to this. This is not an edition of the show that you want to listen to while you're driving or cooking or anything else. You could do that, but I think you'll get the most value out of it, at least with the initial listen to it. I think you'll get the most value out of just sitting with it. Notice how you feel as I ask these questions. Notice how your mind may want to grasp at the questions or to try to solve them. That's not the point, really. The point is about listening and holding the tension, holding the awareness on the space and what else might be in the space. That's the best way I can see it, or say it, really. What do you know for sure? Do you have power, or are you overpowered? A predator or a victim, or both? Do you enjoy, or are you consumed? Do you really reason, or are you so programmed? Can you learn that which you really wish to by yourself alone? What is the difference between knowledge and being? Can you become? How shall you know what you should become? Who is knowledgeable about good, the item goodness? Is good that which we desire, or that which is in itself good? Do we discover that which is real, or do we create it? Do we actually know that which we are doing? If so, why do we repeatedly regret things that we do? If we decide to create our future through positive thinking or levers of manifestation, should we not have some understanding of what motivates us? Have you ever watched yourself make a choice? What is the impulse that precedes the decision? From what depths does the final decision bubble up into consciousness? Or from what heights does inspiration descend into the mind? What are the depths and heights of our being? Do we ever see the world or ourselves clearly? Or is our view constantly colored and influenced? Which of these is your chief influencer? Opinions absorbed from family, friends, or neighbors? Advertising that imitates news? News that imitates truth? Conscious or unconscious traumas? Hereditary conditions? Instinct? Past lives? Planetary forces? Or the will of God? Do animals have consciousness? Do plants or molecules? How do we measure consciousness? If we judge someone or something as unconscious, is that simply a failure of the sensitivity of the measuring instrument? Do animals feel pain, joy, love? Do they feel the approach of death? Science periodically announces the discovery of human-like qualities in animals. Is this the truth, or are all human qualities simply those of animals? Does a spider plan its web? Does a human plan its life? What is the difference between natural and man-made? Are humans separate from the natural world or an emanation from it? Are humans a parasite on the earth, its divine guardian, or a visitor? Are you a unique identity or an assemblage of parts walking in a meat suit? Do you plan the motion of each footfall? Is there an intelligence of the body, of the digestive system, of the cell? Is there an intelligence of the mitochondria within that cell, of an enzyme within that mitochondria, of the amino acid that forms the enzyme? What of the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen elements that form the amino acid? Is there an intelligence of the atoms that form the elements? Of the protons, neutrons, and electrons within the atom? Of the quarks within the protons? Is the mind separate from these excavations into ever more fundamental divisions of particles? Or are the mind and matter inseparably connected? What is the mind? What is time? Does time pass, or is it only you who passes? Which lasted longer, the summer vacations of your youth or this past year? Does the ant or amoeba interpret duration the same as a human, or does its time pass more swiftly? If the clock stops, does time stop? If the rotation of the earth stops, does time stop? What is space? Is space interdependent with time? Do space and time exist at all, except in reference to us? Does stopping the mind stop time? What is eternity? What is infinity? Can we conceive of an eternity as anything other than a very long span of time? Can we conceive of infinity as anything other than a very large space? What does a lifetime feel like? How will we know when it ends? What is self? What is other? What is the borderline between self and other? Is it the surface of our skin? If we touch our left hand with a right hand, is that left hand an other? If we touch our friend's left hand with our right hand, is their left hand an other? What is inside and outside in relation to ourself? Where is inside ourself? Without distance and separation, would time exist? Without the senses, would we be imprisoned or freed? What is the now? If you are not being here now, then where are you? If you think of the past, does that thinking happen in the past? If you think of the future, does that thinking happen in the future? Or is all thought occurring in the now? If so, then who is it that believes the now is someplace other than right now? What is awareness? Is awareness separate from the mind? Is awareness separate from the body? Have you ever passed out, been knocked out, or anesthetized? What became of awareness? What becomes of awareness when you sleep? Does awareness only exist for you if you are aware of it. If you become aware of awareness, are there now two awarenesses within you? And if so, which awareness is more real? What is feeling? What is a feeling of God, the divine, or something, anything other than our individual self? What is it to know with certainty? Do you remember the certainty with which you held to childhood beliefs in Santa Claus, God, or monsters under the bed? What is intuition? How does one arrive at it? Can it be improved? Is intuition limited by the symbols in which we allow it to be expressed? Are those symbols in turn limited by our preconceptions, beliefs, fears, and desires? What is death? Is all religion and philosophy merely rationalization to answer constant cellular awareness of death? Or is the belief in life after death an intuitive reading, a reading not completely translatable into limited human symbols? What proof do we have of life after death for us as an individual? We see a dead body and recognize something is missing. What is it? Where did it go? What is life? Is life a collection of memories? What fraction of a day do we remember, and how accurately? Is life a dream, or an illusion, or an opportunity? What is a life well lived? Is this life just one of many? Are we ever evolving? If so, what is it that is evolving? Is it a soul, a spirit, an individual self? If so, what is the point? What is the ultimate aim of this evolution? Is there an end? What happens after we reach the end? What were we before we were born? What are life and death? Can we conceive of anything other than endings and beginnings? What is the difference between something and nothing? Between being and non-being? Or is there a third way, That is not a way at all, but a transformation, a revealing, a revelation beyond seeming, beyond dreaming, that is both the roaring of a waterfall, the ringing of a tiny silver bell, and silence. Thank you for listening to this edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery. I'm your host, Sean Nevins. For more information about today's guest, as well as more interviews, books, and other resources, go to spiritualteachers.org. That's spiritualteachers.org.